On Christmas Eve, a plane full of people came apart in a thunderstorm. 91 of them died. One did not. A 17-year-old girl fell nearly 2 miles, still strapped to her seat, into the Amazon, and then walked out of the jungle alive. This is the true story of Juliane Koepcke. First, you need to know who she was, because it is the reason she lived. Juliane was not an ordinary teenager. Her parents were scientists who ran a research station called Panguana, deep in the Peruvian Amazon. She spent her early years there, among the birds and the insects her mother and father studied. And her father, a biologist, taught her how the jungle works. One lesson would matter more than any other. If you are ever lost, he told her, find running water and follow it downstream. A trickle leads to a creek. A creek leads to a river. And a river, sooner or later, leads to people. Remember that. It is the 24th of December, 1971. Juliane and her mother just need one short flight to reach her father for Christmas. They board a plane run by an airline with a shaky reputation. Her mother is uneasy about it, but the seats are booked, and it is Christmas, so they get on. About half an hour in, the plane flew straight into a towering black thunderstorm. The cabin shook violently. Then a bolt of lightning struck the aircraft, and one of the wings caught fire. People screamed. Presents and bags tumbled through the cabin. And Juliane knew something was very wrong. The plane did not just crash. High in the sky, it broke apart. The fuselage tore open, and suddenly the roaring cabin was gone. In its place there was open air and rain, and rows of seats falling out into the night. Juliane fell about 3 kilometers, nearly 2 miles, still strapped into her row of seats, spinning through the dark. By any normal logic, that fall should have killed her instantly. It did not. Years later, she described that moment. Quote, "Suddenly, I was outside the plane, in free fall, still strapped to my seat. The only sound I could hear was the wind. Then, everything went black." She woke the next day, on the floor of the rainforest, still half in her seat. She had a concussion, a broken collarbone, a deep gash on her arm, and one eye swollen shut. Her glasses were gone, but somehow she was alive. There was no wreckage around her, no other people, just green in every direction and total silence. Her mother had been sitting right next to her on the plane. Now she was nowhere. Juliane was 17, injured, and utterly alone in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. This is where being that scientist's daughter saved her life. Injured and half-blind, she remembered her father's lesson. She found a tiny trickle of water on the forest floor, and she made a decision. She would follow it downstream, no matter what. So she waited. The trickle became a creek, the creek became a river, exactly as her father had said. Day after day, she pushed on through the water, because the banks were too tangled to walk. She had almost no food, just a bag of sweets she found, and she rationed it, one at a time. The cut on her arm got infected, and she realized, to her horror, that flies had laid eggs in it. Maggots were living inside the wound. When she finally found an abandoned boat, she siphoned a little gasoline from it and poured it into her arm, forcing the maggots out. She had watched her father treat a sick dog the same way. By now she had been walking for around 10 days. She was starving, sunburnt, and covered in bites. And then, near the river, she found it. A small hut and a boat. Shelter. She crawled inside, too weak to go much further, and waited. Hours later, a group of local lumber workers returned to that hut. They found a barefoot, wounded teenager who calmly explained, in their language, that she had been on the plane that vanished. They fed her, treated her, and took her out by canoe. 11 days after she fell from the sky, Juliane Koepcke was safe. Of the 92 people on that flight, 91 died. Juliane was the only survivor. Not the strongest passenger, not the luckiest seat. A 17-year-old girl who knew how to read a jungle. So why her? Experts think 3 things lined up. Her whole row of seats spun as it fell, which may have slowed her down like a leaf. The thick jungle canopy cushioned the final impact. And after that, her father's training carried her out. She survived the fall by luck, but she survived the jungle by knowledge. We checked this against the crash reports, her own memoir, and news archives. Here is one detail that still gives people chills. The film director Werner Herzog was booked on that exact flight while scouting a movie and changed his plans at the last moment. Decades later, he made a documentary with Juliane, walking the same jungle she once crawled through. Juliane did not run from the rainforest. She became a biologist just like her parents, and she went back to Panguana, the very station where she grew up, to study and protect it. The jungle that almost took her life is now the thing she has given her life to. If that helped you, subscribe. There is a new hand-drawn, fact-checked story like this every couple of days. I'm really glad you're here.